Hello, welcome to another edition of Low Code Cafe. This is episode 181 for March 5, 2025, and today we're going to be talking about automated testing, advanced testing strategies using Cypress. We'll have a special guest from our Romanian team, Cosmin, who will talk to us about that. But before we do that, let me introduce myself. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plant and App, and joined capably by Patrick Anderson, who is Technical Success Manager for Plant and App. This is an event that we do every other Wednesday, 10 a.m. Central Time. It's a webinar where we get together and show techniques within Plant and App. We spend most of our time on hands-on low coding, although we'll provide some updates and tell you what's going on with Plant and App as well. We record all of them and put them on YouTube, so you can get to that on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/plantandapp. So 180 hours of very good training content out there already. Our agenda today, I'll do a little bit talking about from the trenches of support, but then the biggest portion will go to hands-on low coding with Cosmin. He's from our product development department. He's a QA engineer. You're welcome to engage with us, so you can use the chat window or the question and answer window. Even raise your hand and we'll call on you. You can ask a question. But you can also engage with us after it's all over with using the feedback form. That'll be a link that we'll put on the chat window as well. Our next live webinar will be on March 19th, 2 weeks from today. Topic yet to be determined. So, from the trenches of support, we are currently working the most current release of Plant and App is version 1.26. It came out in June, and we usually talk about hot fixes, but there have not been any hot fixes in the last 2 weeks, at least and any that are ready for release yet. We've been focused largely on getting the next version out, version 1.27, and the release date for that, the beta release, is under discussion, but should happen within the next 2 weeks now. Version 1.26 is the only version that's within our official supported until window. We support things for at least 1 year back. So if you're earlier than version 1.26, I encourage you to make a plan to upgrade. We'll help you with that plan. If you like, you can open a ticket on support and we'll help you make that plan. But I do encourage you to get to that. 1.26 is a very stable and mature release. On Fridays, we do Low Code Campfire. That's this same hour, 10 a.m. Central Time, and that's more of a conversation where we talk about the challenges that we face within doing our low code projects, and oftentimes we answer questions and help power through projects right within that hour. So I do encourage you to join us with that. And if you have questions about what you see today, Cosmin has said that he will be attending the Low Code Campfire on Friday, so you can also bring your questions or comments or compliments to the meeting on Friday. We have a few links for this episode, and Patrick will put that on the chat board here in a moment or now. You can use the first one will let you register for the Low Code Campfire coming up on Friday. But then our YouTube channel is there, our community portal. Community portal is a great place to also to get your questions answered because it's not only monitored by our team but by the community, and so it's often a very big help. And then there's our feedback form. You can tell us what you think about this episode or what you'd like to see in a future episode. So this episode is part 3 of something we started a few weeks ago. So part 1 and part 2, the links are there. Part 1, we talked about making forms more reliable and how you can make sure that they continue to have the outputs and the functionality that you'd hoped, that you designed originally. Part 2 we talked about, let's see, I think I've got this on a slide coming up. So let me move to that. Give me just a second. But the links are there so you can get to them. So in a moment we'll turn this over to Cosmin. But our three-part series, the first one was about reliable user interfaces, so forms that continue to do the things that you originally intended. And then part two is all about mastering business logic, using workflows to test to make sure that your logic remains consistent, and that if you have a workflow that generated an output, to be able to test that output and make sure that it continues to come up with the expected answers even after you make changes to it. Today is about continuing in automated testing using Cypress. So the overview, the goals of where we're trying to get to today is to understand what's possible with Cypress, what it is, how to set it up, and then if we're successful, you'll be able to configure Cypress on your system. You'll be able to to test a website, and we're going to focus on a Plant and App entity generated page, which is something very reproducible for you. So you should be able to follow along with today's presentation and succeed at doing the exact same thing we're presenting. And then once you've got that, you'll be able to branch off and use Cypress to test things on your own sites. So Cosmin, if you'll open up, and you can take over the share here, and I'll let you carry us through. Welcome.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Cosmin. I'll take over the share now. Okay. So, the main question, what is Cypress? It is a testing framework for JavaScript. We can also use it to test our web applications. Why do we use Cypress? It's because its syntax is quite simple and it's easy to install. And it's also quite fast and reliable. It also has a way to visually debug and visually see the failures in our product. The end-to-end tests can verify the product from start to finish, meaning that we can test our entire product, so nothing is overlooked, or which can happen in unit tests or integration testing. It is possible to implement tests that emulate the user experience with Cypress, meaning that it's very close to the end user. So it's not using some trickery like Selenium. It's more close to the user.
And if I could, I mean, internally we use it to test our product so that we can see that the experience remains consistent, that listings behave like listings and forms and specific features. But from an end user perspective, or excuse me, from our client's perspective, they can use Cypress to test filling in a particular form and getting a particular result, and so we're working on improving the reliability of our product. They could work on the reliability of the systems they build with our product.
Exactly. And you can test any workflow that you make, or anything that is interactable in our website, in Plant and App. The installation is very easy. You need to have Node.js with npm. The easiest way to do that in Windows is just running the command winget install openjs node.js. Other ways are just simply going to the Node.js website and downloading the executable from there. In Linux, I think you can do just a simple apt install npm, and it will be installed in the computer. The main way of doing of creating a Cypress project is by creating the directory. Its name will be the project's name, and running the following command or the alternative one-liner. npm init initializes a Node.js environment. npm install savedev Cypress 14.0.0 and TypeScript installs Cypress for this specific version that we are using, and TypeScript. TypeScript is a tool that helps us find bugs or prevents us from doing stuff that we shouldn't do. And npx TypeScript TSC init basically initializes the TypeScript in our project.
And sorry for interrupting, by the way, I forgot to mention that all the things that were these commands and the files that Cosmin is going to present, we will make available for download, and that link is going to be part of our YouTube. So when we publish the YouTube, you'll be able to get to all these resources and easily follow along. So thanks for that.
The next thing that we should do is that we should replace the content of the generated tsconfig file with the following. Most notable from here is the types that we basically ask TypeScript to help us with types for Cypress and for the Node environment. Without these, we won't get as good of a type safety as we could get. Then we need to run npx cypress open, which will open interactable UI, and from there we can create a test specification. Dale, I think it's the moment to actually show what I'm talking about, if possible, because we can do this live. So let's make a folder called Cypress, and here we can open the PowerShell. And then copy paste the one-liner that we provided. And as simple as that, the project is created. I'll use VS Code as the editor. And this is the file that we have to edit in order for our types to be present. All right. Then we run npx cypress open.
So that was with run new terminal or something.
This is incorporated terminal. We can also do that from the PowerShell.
You just clicked it real fast. I want to make sure that people can follow along how to get to that terminal.
So it's just a terminal. We can do it from PowerShell. That's no problem. Then we will select end-to-end testing because we will not cover component testing for now. And it will generate some files for us, some configuration files, but the defaults are good. We don't need to change anything else. And then it will automatically detect the available browsers. I'll use Chrome for this example. And here I'll create a new spec, test specification, and I'll just do the basics. So yeah, and here we go. We have our first basic test. It doesn't contain anything, it just visits the HTTPS example cypress.io. Okay. Now I'll get back to presenting. After we have made the project, we should have a website to test on. So we will make we'll need to create an entity for this example called preference. That will be a preference like Italian food or Chinese food, and an entity person that will have a name, an email, and the set preference, maybe age. So let's do that. All right. Oops. I think good. So firstly, we will add a namespace Cypress and select it. Then we can name our entity. Actually, I'd like to make a page called Cypress. So how do I make a page, Dale?
Yeah, you can just hit add page.
Add page. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's going to
I
be our
didn't
new
find it.
page. Yep.
And I'll add it like that. So we have a way where we can store our entities. Okay. We'll select as the parent page Cypress, continue. Then we'll need to make it to have it a name. So yeah, text is good. We'll select it as the display name, and this should all be set. We don't need to look at permissions. All right, let's make our person entity, person, people. Also, let's use Cypress as our parent page. And the person should have a name, should have an age, or let me see. So I don't do anything that we don't plan to do in our demo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the script that he's going to
Yeah.
release and put for the download, it's all set for this particular layout. So if you're following along, do it exactly as he does it, and should work out.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm double checking right now to see if it's compatible. Prefer person. Yeah. So the next one should be email, but I think it can also be age. We'll use an email primitive field, then an age that we can set it to number, integer, obviously, and a preference. Okay. And we can just point it to the preference we just created. As a display name, let's set the name, and everything else should be fine. All right. So we can hit preview, and we should have this this environment. Let's add the two preferences I mentioned earlier, and I'll just copy paste the names so we don't have any problems later. Italian food, like spelling mistakes.
We do a lot of copy paste in these demos, trying to keep it consistent. Good.
Yeah. And Chinese food. All right. And now we should be good to go on the low code side. Let's get back to the.
So we've created an environment ready to test.
Oh, actually, I've just forgot to add the Cypress user because we will need to create a Cypress user so he can log in and use our website.
Perfect.
So let's do that. Users. Let's add a new user, and let me get the exact email. Ah, perfect. Let's set it to Cypress. Anything should go. And the incredibly secure password. Great. We should also give this user the low code engineer role and maybe the user's role. So if we don't give Cypress access to low code engineering, he will not be able to see our just created pages.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Good. Now that we've created the Cypress user, I think I got a little ahead of myself, but yeah. Let me get the script into view because I'll just copy paste it and I'll explain it. For now, we will update it later. Great. And this is our script that we'll use for today. Of course, Cypress already tries to sees the changes and already tries to run the tests, but we will need to make some changes first. the first change that we should make is to update our site URL to to indicate to our application. So in this case is Cypress Café and Cypress Café. We use these two because we may have a form URL, so we may have the form on a page and the grid on another page. In this case, we will use the following form, which is the listing here. So the form is on the same page with the grid. So we don't have to make any more changes. We of course need to provide the login URL or path, but for this it's PA login. And here we need to provide credentials for Cypress so he can actually access the web page. So we see that I wrote here the email and of course the password, which it's not that secure, but for this purpose it should suffice. Then we can describe our specifications. So we have Cypress demo low level because we can improve it later, but for now let's get down to the basics. We have the keyword it. So basically our application should create a user. Then we describe the steps that our application should make in order to test our workflow or our form or our grid. Firstly, we'll need to instruct Cypress on how to log in, and this is a function, a method that exists already in Cypress, so we don't have to worry with that. I mean, not the entire login, but the navigate part. So we can just do cypress.visit and fill in the URL and the path, the login path, and it will take us there.
So that's going to control the browser to go to that URL.
Exactly. After that, the easiest method to wait for a page to load is to simply wait a second. We should avoid whenever possible calls like this because it will always wait a second, but the web page may load faster than that, or and if we wait only 200 milliseconds, then maybe some time we will have slower internet, so the test will fail, but our application is still in good shape. So whenever possible, we should avoid this, but for our demonstration, this will suffice.
So waiting is easier. More complex would be checking to see if the screen loaded as you would expect it and then moving on.
Exactly. Some other ways to wait, some to check, are to check for on-screen spinners to see if they are not there anymore, or to actually intercept a GET request that you know it's the one that should show that the page is loaded. So yeah, but that's a little harder to do, so we'll just wait a second. I think we should actually look at it running. So we can see what we are explaining here. Good. So it will look something like this. Oh, and preference failed for some reason. Yeah, we forgot the to include in our presentation the fact that we need to add another change in our
setup. Yeah.
setup. Exactly. We need to
We
change the form from a drop down to a radio box.
and
Let
this
me
was we had predetermined that we wanted to show a radio box and just forgot to do this. So it's not that you have to change your application to work with Cypress, but rather this was something that we had intended to show and didn't set up. So we're going to same form. It's going to be a radio box. So
exactly. So this is the only change that we'll do.
so if you don't mind, hit that new button and show what the form is now going to look like. So we're teaching it to fill in this form and to pick the correct radio box. That's what the script does.
Exactly. Okay. So now we can go back to Cypress and try that again. It fills the email, it logs in, and you can see how fast it tests our application, and it's done. So this may take a lot of time, usually, especially if it's repetitive, and we can automate this testing, so we don't do it every time. That's our goal. And
So if I understand right, what we did was we set it up to log in, create a new record, then we went to the listing and verified that the new record was present. So we've tested the form functionality, the data functionality, the grid functionality, and then at the end, the script cleaned up the record so that it could run again.
yes,
A nice.
yes, exactly. And we indirectly we also tested that our changes to the form are working. So basically, the radio box. We could have made a wrong choice, or uh, we could have broken the form, and Cypress would have shown us an error, like it showed us in the beginning. So now I'll continue to explain the steps and what the actual line of codes mean. And okay, firstly, Cypress can't know what button we want to click, or what input, what text box we want to fill. So we have to provide information about them for Cypress, and we can simply do that, but by I think here, yeah, by simply using inspect element, and we can click this button and hover over the fields that we're interested in. So if we hover on this button, we can see that it's a button and is of type button. It has a title, ads, and so on. We can use these attributes to reference the given object. Let's go to let's go to the login. All right. So this is our login page. We can see that we have the email field and the password field. So how would we do this? we can see that it's an input right here. So
Thinking about this, we want to teach Cypress, go to the email field and fill in this, go to the password field and fill in that, click the login button. So we
Exactly.
even know what to point it to.
Yes, I'll have it like this so we can see it better. Um, we can see that the most relevant field here is AF field title email, and we can actually do a search by query string and actually fill in this selector and see that it's only one element present on this page. So this is exactly what we are looking for. Okay, and that's basically it for selectors. We of course will make Cypress try to get the element, and then we'll have some basic assertions like it should be visible, it should be enabled, so we can type into it. If those things are not asserted, we may not be able to type into it. We may not have the login page up actually, and yeah, these may mean that we will have way more problems like later, or that our application is down. So we
So
should
dot,
also,
so dot should is a Cypress command, and it's
yeah,
asserting that it's be visible is again a predetermined command that says that field is on screen.
yes, exactly. This actually tests if
Mhm.
it's visible. Then, of course, we can have a enabled or disabled field, but in our case, we need to have it enabled to type in it. The next command is simply typing the username that we provided earlier. We could also write it hold on. write it in here manually, but why not use the variable so we don't make the typing mistakes? Force true and delay zero are used to write it as fast as possible because we are not interested in a delay or something like that. Also, there are a lot of updates on a web page that are not seen. So the web page may change while Cypress is typing. So we would like it to type as fast as possible, so the web page doesn't change while it's typing. Because if it changes, it will stop typing. Yeah, and after that, we are asserting to see if we actually filled in the username, because sometimes it might fail, like in the example I just said. With the password, we have the exact same logic, but of course we're filling in the password. After that, we are getting the submit button. This is the uniquely identifier selector that we can get on the page, and we can use Cypress to get the button, to see if it's visible, see if it's enabled, then to click it. Afterwards, we will wait a second and for the login to actually go through, and then we will visit the page URL, which is Cypress/people. That's one reason why I did the Cypress page up here.
Mhm.
And we can also see here the entire link. So this is where we want to go. Okay. Afterwards, our goal is to open the form. We can do it with the by pressing the new button. So the add, which is this one. Of course, if we get it by the selector, we can see that the actual title is add. So
we're finding it by the title.
yes, exactly. We can also find it by the text, but if we have another thing on the page that is is a button with this text, then we'll have more items on the page that have
You
the
want to pick
same.
out something that's unique so that it's very easy, so that Cypress reliably finds that element.
Exactly. Otherwise, Cypress will just take the first element, and it may not be the element we would like. As we did with the submit in the login section, we will see if it's visible, enabled, and then click it. Then we will get the name selector for the name field and see if it's visible, enabled, and we will type, let's say, Mark Smith, again with a delay of 0, and we'll force it to do it. And we will assert that it's typed there. So click, then get this field and type Mark Smith. After that, we will type 50 in the age text area, and also we'll type mark@email.com. So we just fill in some basic information. There's nothing special about it. And after that, we will have to make our preference selection with the radio box. Here, we can't only use the field ID, which is our preference ID, because there are two fields with this. Let me just show you. Okay, so here we can see that there are two fields because there are two radio boxes. So then we'll need to be more granular with our selection. And if we pick one of them, like the first one, we can see that it has a value of 1. And the other one has a value of 2. So we can differentiate them using this value. That one. So basically, mark@email.com likes Italian food. Then we will press the submit button, and then we will verify if our entity was actually created by going to the grids and waiting for the grid to load. In this example, the grid is actually on the same page with the form, so this step is not really necessary, but we can still see how it's usually done. Let's actually Mark Smith, mark@email. Actually, I think I can fill in anything. Okay. Then, of course, we can make a number of assertions. We can look at the table header to see if uh, we are actually looking at the right table, or if the table got changed in the meantime, and we are not we are expecting something, but it's the application changed, and that may be bad. Yeah. So here we can do that header testing. We can get the header selector, which is this, and this isn't actually unique, but it can't be really unique because this is actually a list. So if we do it like this, then we will see that we have 5 contenders. But this is not actually a problem because we would like to parse all of them and to see if they're if all of them are meeting our needs or our requirement. So basically we can test if the first one is the ID, the second one is the name, the third one is the email, and so on. Right here, I've only tested if it has a length of 5 and tested if the text content of the second element in the list is name. The indexing starts from 0, so result of 1 is actually the second element in the list. Afterwards, we can actually try to narrow down our list, because this may be a list that we are actually using, and we may have like Cosmin with cosmin@email.com and age 27 that likes Chinese food, let's say. And if we try to make assertion here on this listing, we may have Mark on top of Cosmin, so, or the other way around, and we may try to look at the first row, and we may assert for Cosmin, but on the first row is Mark. So we can actually use the search to search for our data, basically. For this example, of course, we are using Mark in our specification, in our test. So we used Mark above. We will search for Mark Smith. Of course, for testing reasons and to avoid collision, you can make this as unique as possible. So you don't have an actual Mark Smith in the list that you would be looking for. Again, here is a wait of 1 second because Plant an app takes a little bit to search through all of our entities and show us the correct one. Then we can get the rows. So with this selector, if we will go back to here and search for this exact selector without the quotes on the beginning and the end, we'll see that we have only one row present, which is what we expect. So we can assert this by using should be visible, then should have length 1. It's quite easy. As I said in the beginning, the syntax is very easy. Then we can have something a little bit more complicated. We can get we can basically assert each cell. And of course, this is the selector for the cells in our table, and we will have them given us by Cypress from the left to right. So the first one will be the ID, then the name, then the email, and so on. We will assert to see if they're all visible, and then we have two ways of doing this. The first one is it's slower, but the second one is a little bit faster, but we would usually use the second one if possible. The first one actually expects that it's a happy case, that Mark Smith will eventually appear in that position. So if we know that the form or the listing is already loaded and it can't change, we can use the second one. If we know that it can possibly change, we can make use of the first one. And of course, we test the second position, the third position, the fourth position, the fifth position. We test to see if it's let's switch back to Mark. We test to see if we can find Mark, if we can find the email Mark around email.com, if we can find the age 23. I think in our specification we set it to 50, but it shouldn't matter. And if the preference is actually Italian food. I'll delete this so it doesn't interfere. If we run the specification again.
And here's part of where you're thinking about what you're testing. Right?
Yeah.
You're not asserting the ID because that's going to change every time. But
yes,
we skipped over column 0, but we're testing all the other things which are predetermined. We know that those are testable. If the form worked as we expected, then we should find those exact values in those columns.
Exactly. We are not testing for ID because the ID always changes. So
right.
we can't well, we can't expect an exact value to be there. But for the other ones, these are values that we just set. So we are expecting them to actually be there. If we find anything else, then Cypress will throw an error because the assertion will fail, and that means it's probably a problem with our form. Maybe we made some mistake, and yeah. These kind of tests help us make changes, then quickly test if our functionality remained the same. Maybe we have some optimizations that we can make to our form, or maybe we want to rewrite it so it's more it has a more clean look, and it's easier to see, easier to manage, and but the functionality may stay the same. So we can, instead of doing the entire workflow, or instead of manually testing the entire form from ground up every time, we can just run a Cypress test. But in order to do this automatically every time, we will need some kind of cleanup, because in this state, our test will basically create a Mark Smith, then a second Mark Smith, a third Mark Smith, and our assertion will fail, this assertion, because we won't have a single row returned to us. We will have many more rows, like maybe 2, 3, 4, who knows, and our test will fail, and we don't want that. We want useful, repeatable tests. So obviously we will select the delete button, then and click it, and then select the delete, and then select the confirmation of the delete button, and then click that. Here, as you can see, the selector is quite different than what we had before. That's because I've used a little trick. So basically, oh, I think actually we have Cosmin that we can delete. Yeah. If we select the button, we can then right-click it in the DOM and then copy its selector. And it will bring us a unique identifier for that button. So we can actually use this, but sometimes it's better to come with our own identifier, because as we can see here, we have a table container 434, and this may not be the same on another form.
But so long as you're
So
testing that one form, that's one easy way to come up with a selector.
yes.
Yep.
But if you want to reuse this code, so uh, basically we may have this form on more pages, or almost the same form, and we want to test for 2-3 entities that are almost the same. This selector won't work, so we should always try to go towards a custom selector that we made. For this example, this is the selector that I came up with, because yeah, the button has title delete, has parent TD, and has parent like this. So yeah, this should be common throughout all of listings.
Well, good. So we are kind of coming to the top of our hour.
Yeah,
Maybe we can, if it's okay with you, we can wrap this with a couple of things. One, showing this script successfully running, um, maybe a couple of times, because it's showing that the cleanup is effective. So let's we have it all in a good
yes,
state. We run it.
we can rerun the test from here.
So we can see it creating the record. It's present,
Searching, yep,
searching.
and
Okay.
then deleting Mark Smith. So yeah, the deletion made us able to rerun the test.
So as you're looking at the window on the left, the fact that things are showing as green is an indication of success, right? Is there any other?
Yes, these are the steps.
So every step.
Um, yeah, these are the steps in our test, and if we scroll back to the top, we can actually collapse the test and just see that the test passed. So thick uh, the thick box is more important, let's say.
And
Um,
when you open that out, I noticed as you're scrolling up that you can see what the test looked like at that stage.
exactly.
So,
We can look at any step of the test. We can even see the loading. So basically, this is what Plantain app looks when it's loading for a frame or two, and a lot of this is weighted by Cypress by default, using should be visible.
mhm.
Yeah. So this is the reason why we keep repeating should be visible, should be enabled everywhere throughout our test. Um, Uh, this is a little verbose, so we may want to hide these checks in another function and uh, call that function. So we are not repeating ourselves over and over and over, but that is maybe a more advanced topic, and I don't think time allows for today. But we can see what will happen if the cleanup is not done. And we will search for Mark Smith, and as we can see, Mark Smith was not deleted. And the test is passed. Yeah, yeah. But if we, let's say, make some changes, other changes, and we want to try the test again, we'll see that the test will fail at the assertion of only one row being present, which is this one. And we also get, we can click it to pin the console. Otherwise, it may do some other requests in the background and it will clog up the console. So, and we can see that the expected element, we are expecting it to have a length of 1, but we got a length of 2. And we can also see them highlighted here. So it's Mark Smith and Mark Smith.
Perfect. All right, I think that's a great introduction to Cypress, and anyone could get started with that. We'll, as I mentioned, we will post that information on the website so that anyone can follow along. And yeah, I'm going to take the share back here for a second, and we will close out. Good. So we're glad that you joined us for this hour. I hope that that's been of value to you. We will be back again in a couple of weeks with a new topic. And just as a reminder, if you have questions about Cypress and how to apply it or anything that you saw today, we'll try and do that at the top of the hour at Friday's Low Code Campfire. And so we will see you at either of those two events. Thanks for joining.